Welcome to the Iowa Department of Education's Technical Assistance webinar entitled Identification and Placement of English Learners, ELLs.
Please pause to prepare for this webinar to get your copy of Educating Iowa's English Learners, a handbook for administrators and teachers.
After viewing this webinar, you will be able to correctly complete the 5-step process for identifying and placing a student as an English learner, identify and understand the importance of the home language survey, and comply with the federal timeline for the placement of English learners.
The Iowa Department of Education has identified 5 steps to ensure that districts are appropriately and efficiently identifying and placing English learners. Step 1. Parent or guardian completes home language survey. Step 2. The initial assessment, which includes A. Assessing English proficiency, B. Assessing academic skills, and C. Collecting other pertinent data. Step 3. Preliminary program placement. 4. Observation and assessment. 5. Final placement. This process, including final placement, must be completed for each student within 30 days of the beginning of the school year, or 2 weeks within student enrollment during the school year.
This graphic identifies a decision-making tree outlining the 5-step process. When new students enroll, step 1 is to give them the home language survey. Are they a potential English learner? Based on the survey results, if no, the student is placed into the mainstream instructional program. If yes, if parents answer any of the questions that flag them as a potential English learner, you move to step 2. In step 2, you collect 3 types of information: assessment for English language proficiency, academic skills, and pertinent data. After collecting the information and determining if they are limited English proficient, the answer is no, they move into the mainstream instructional program. If based on all of that data the answer is yes, then you move to step 3, which is the preliminary program placement. You place them in an appropriate English language instruction program, and then step 4, you observe them and continue with your assessment in order to finally place the student in the appropriate language instruction education program in step 5.
Definition. Chapter 280, Section 280.4 of the Iowa Code defines a limited English proficient or LEP student as follows. A student's background is in a language other than English, and the student's proficiency in English is such that the probability of the student's academic success in an English-only classroom is below that of an academically successful peer with an English background.
Let's take a deeper dive into the steps of the process. Step 1 is the home language survey. This survey can be found on Transact, and it is required that all districts use Form IA from the Transact website. This must be part of a new student's registration packet and stored in the cumulative folder as a permanent record. The parent or guardian must complete the home language survey upon enrollment, and if a response on the survey indicates a language other than English in the student's background, identify whether the student is continuing or initial placement.
Continuing placement. If the incoming student is identified as continuing placement, request from the transferring district or building most recent annual English language proficiency score or placement screener result, current service plan, and most recent annual content proficiency scores. If this data cannot be collected within the federal timeline, then administer the state-approved English language proficiency screener.
Step 2. During the initial assessment, you must assess English proficiency. Iowa Code Chapter 281, 60.3, subsection 3, states that these assessments shall be conducted by utilizing state, local, or nationally recognized tests, as well as teacher observations and recommendations. You must use the state-approved English language proficiency placement assessment. You must also assess academic skills and collect pertinent data. Assessing academic skills. The following is a list of recommended methods that include but are not limited to ensuring that skills and abilities assessed line up with essential district curricula. Enlist the help of a translator and/or interpreter. Allow students to use their native language in answering questions, remembering that academic skills and not language proficiency is the focus of this assessment. Use plenty of visuals in order to ensure that students understand the task or concept being assessed. In addition, utilize innovative test tasks such as drawing, sequencing pictures, matching, and/or using graphic organizers. For math, use language-free computation problems to assess skills. Be aware, however, that other cultures may use different symbols for mathematical operations, and a translator or interpreter can provide guidance in this area.
Other pertinent data. Appropriate district personnel should collect pertinent information, such as family background, academic background, language experience, number of languages spoken by the student and his or her family, health, length of time in the United States, cultural and developmental information. Other pertinent data will provide a comprehensive overview of the student's past and present life and school experiences. This information should be used to help teachers and administrators provide the most appropriate educational program for each English learner.
In Step 3, the preliminary program placement. Upon entering the school system, ELLs will receive instruction in core content and English language acquisition. The initial assessment is often quick and general in nature. Therefore, the initial placement of an English learner in a particular level of English language instructional programming may be tentative. Districts should develop a procedure by which teachers can correct and fine-tune placements after a period of classroom contact during which the student's skill level is more clearly defined. Additionally, if a language minority student is initially assessed as fully English proficient, but upon further observation appears to be experiencing difficulty, then additional assessment of English language and academic skills is needed. Formal and informal assessment techniques as well as teacher observations should be used to ensure the appropriate placement of the student. Age-appropriate placement of English learners should be as close to possible in the grade in which other students of the same age are placed.
Observation and assessment. After the student's preliminary placement, teachers should observe him or her in that environment to assess appropriateness of the placement decision. It's also important to assess and evaluate actual student performance.
Step 5, the final placement. A decision regarding the student's placement in both mainstream classes and the language instruction educational program is made using a team approach, including but not limited to the following. The student, if the student is of such age that it's appropriate to include him or her in the process, mainstream teachers, the bilingual teacher, the language instruction education program teacher, instructional assistants, counselors, parents, and administrators.
The team should analyze student performance data in both academic and language skills to determine his or her appropriate placement. No placement should be considered permanent, however. The student's progress should be evaluated frequently, and an appropriate program change should be made as soon as need is determined.
Let's recap. From this webinar, you should now understand how to correctly complete the 5-step process for identifying and placing a student as an English learner, identify and understand the importance of the home language survey, and comply with the federal timeline for the placement of English learners.
Questions regarding identification and placement should be directed to your district's AEA Title III consultant.
The following resources can be utilized to support the content of this webinar. Please visit the Iowa Department of Education's website to access the English Language Learners Handbook for Administrators and Teachers, found at the link below. Also visit the Transact site to access the Home Language Survey as well as other useful English Language Learner documents for parent notification and program organization. The link to Transact can be found below. Thank you for your time and attention to this very important topic.